أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم
पनाह मांगता हूँ मैं अल्लाह की शैतान मरदूद से।
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
शुरू अल्लाह का नाम लेकर जो बड़ा मेहरबान निहायत रहम वाला है।
औज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम अल्हम्दुलिल्लाहि रब्बिल आलमीन वस्सलातु वस्सलामु अला अशरफिल अंबिया'i वल मुरसलीन व खातिमिन नबिय्यीन। Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Brothers and sisters of Islam, welcome to this program of Faith Forum. Today I have a guest whom you should be able to recognize. He has been on our program several times. His name is Paul Salahuddin Armstrong. Paul, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to this program.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Paul, with his associates and friends, is doing a marvelous job, not just in the city of Birmingham, but in England and via the means of communication throughout the world, trying to bring not only the Muslim thoughts, but the thoughts of non-Muslim world, to bring better understanding and knowledge of Islam, of Muslim religion, Muslim faith, Muslim culture. Today, we thought together we will have a discussion on looking across the horizon to see when will the killing stop, when will peace return, when will the children be able to walk the streets without fear, when can parents send their children to school with the certainty that they will return home. And that place we are talking about is a name which you must have been seeing on the television screen, on the newspaper headlines, in magazines and news. The place is no other country but Pakistan. Paul, a geographically well placed country strategically, facing the Middle East. On one side is the vast nation of India, second largest population in the world. On the north of it is China, which has the largest population in the world. And if you take the two neighbors, China and India, they make a vast population of the world itself. And Pakistan is no little country itself. And it's a rich country with beautiful mountains, rivers, valleys, lovely temperature and climate, and the fields from paddy to wheat and other agricultural amenities Allah has provided. We thought when a nation like that would be created, it would be like the Garden of Eden, a country where the people who live in it would enjoy the fruits, the sunshine, the peace and harmony, and a nation would grow that would make not only itself, but the Muslim world and Islam at large proud of itself. It does not look like to be in that making today. In 1947, a country was born called Pakistan with great hope. And the leaders led by Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, they must have had a dream of a beautiful country, a dream of peace, tranquility and prosperity. That's all been shattered for last quite a few years, and within last few months and weeks it has grown from bad to worse. Do you think that there are reasons behind it?
Well, of course there are reasons behind it, but I think, as you mentioned, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, he had a vision of a great nation. A lot of the problem in Pakistan is that people have forgotten his vision, and not many people actually tried to implement it after him. They all went off on their own tangents. You had people from the military trying to control too much, and then you had other people that were too overzealous in matters of religion, in forgetting that first and foremost we're all human beings, we're all Bani Adam, and it doesn't matter what religion people are, ultimately we have to live together. And all the religions teach that we should live together and respect each other. In the Bible it says about creed and colour, that no matter what the creed and colour of people, you're supposed to accept them. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, taught about the Jews and the Christians, that they are the closest people to us in beliefs. And the Quran says, on them shall be no fear, neither shall they grieve. So it's like you'll find in all the religions that we should come together, and yet you somehow manage to get people that are overzealous in their particular cult, that they forget what the overriding teaching of religion is, that it is peace and love and brotherhood, and that brotherhood extends to everyone. And of course Muhammad Ali Jinnah, he understood this. He was also a religious man, but he wasn't an extremist. He was someone who had common sense and realized that you have to have the foundations in the state in terms of stable economy, stable foundations, stable infrastructure, and all these help to foster this kind of brotherhood among people, and everybody has to contribute to it. He understood this, but sadly we've had the people that have been involved in government since that have there's no comparison to him in terms of they don't have the quality, they don't have the understanding. A lot of them are just abusing government for themselves and their own families. And it's any country that is caught in that kind of situation between corrupt politicians on the one hand and religious nutcases on the other is obviously going to be pulled apart. And this is where we find the problems. But the irony, as you say, Pakistan as a country is perfectly placed. It is placed in a climate which it's better than ours here in the UK. It's warm throughout the year. And if you go to the higher regions, it's got a beautiful sort of spring-like climate throughout the year. It's wonderful. And it's got so many resources. As you say, its proximity to China, which happens to be one of the fastest growing economies in the world. And I just returned back from there myself. And the country's doing splendidly. And obviously India is as well. On the other side, you've got Dubai, the other Emirates, and Saudi Arabia, and that part of the world, which is economically also doing very well. And Iran, of course. And of course, it's like if we built up good economic connections with all these countries, the economy of Pakistan would thrive. But of course, in order to build the economy, you need to have a stable infrastructure. You need to have people working together and not fighting each other. You need to, people who come in to set up businesses need to know that their business isn't going to be blown up tomorrow. Otherwise, why are they going to bother? These are very, very important points.
As you were talking about vision, and Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah had a vision, and he fought for that vision. And before he died, he saw that into reality. Then they drafted the constitution of the nation. And believe it or not, the constitution is very secular in its setup. It enshrines the rights of Muslims and non-Muslims, anybody and everybody who dwells in that heartland should have equal rights. Yet we see from Kashmir in the north, Baluchistan, whether it's the hilly areas or frontier areas, or even in the south, the city of immigrants or Mahajir, that is Karachi, we find that a nation has been pulled apart, ripped apart, torn in with one thing, ethnic outlook for its seculated communities. First, it was according to the language or the culture, like the Punjab and the Sindhis, and according to language. Then it became more of a religious faction. But being a Muslim nation, there wasn't another religion to fight. So unfortunately, the fight became an internal battle of different sects within Islam. And even that went further. Now they started looking scapegoats. If a Christian uneducated woman was found doing something wrong, she's doing blasphemy, she must be hanged, she must be killed, she must be stoned to death. Yet those very muftis who gave various fatwas, alas, they have took the member as the replica of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's member, from which he preached peace, he preached brotherhood, he preached kindness, he preached ikhlaq. Those very muftis and imams of the mosques could have helped to contain and eradicate this virus that has gone wild throughout the country. Don't they, Paul, Brother Salahuddin, don't they have responsibility even today? Cannot they, should not they take up that role, that position, that importance of guidance for the people?
You're absolutely right. I mean, in a nation which has quite a focus on a particular religion, then the people that are supposedly the religious leaders, they have a responsibility to put out a constructive message. You know, I mean, if they are, even if they just sit back and do nothing. I mean, Albert Einstein pointed this out some time ago, that there's evil in the world, not because of evil people, but because of good people sitting back and doing nothing. So even, you know, among the ulama who are there, I'm not saying they're all bad or they're all, you know, but the good ones often don't speak up, you know, and they get scared because someone else has said something extremist, and then, oh, maybe that's, I mean, what kind of ulama are they? I ask seriously. Ulama are supposed to be people of knowledge. If you know your religion, you don't need to be scared of someone else saying something crazy and saying it's Islam, and then sitting back and saying, oh, maybe it is. I mean, this is insane. You know, I've been studying my religion for many years, and I speak out strongly now when I see something which is wrong, because at the end of the day, that's my duty. If I have the understanding to know that that is wrong, and that is completely the opposite of what Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, intended and taught throughout his life, then if I didn't speak up and say something, I would not be doing my duty as a human being. I have a responsibility to my brothers and sisters in our human family to present what is true and to do what is right. And at the end of the day, just like when I've had problems in the past and there have been people that have helped me, I have a responsibility to the community in which I live. And every single one of us has that responsibility. And this whole problem of scapegoating, it comes from the fact that people are not taking this responsibility on an individual level. They allow themselves to be scared by crazy version of religious propaganda, and they sit back, don't do anything to try and change that. And they are not taking responsibility. And then they assume, it's like any time any story comes up in the news, like something I posted today and commented on it, that it's not Islam to punish a victim of rape. You know, if a girl has been raped, then it's not her, she should never be punished, she should be helped and supported. And whoever raped her is the one who deserves to be sentenced in a court of law. And you know, what kind of inversion of Sharia have we got when the victim is punished? But whenever you post a story like this, or whenever a bomb goes off in Karachi or in the northwest frontier or in Kashmir, then people say, no, it's not Muslims behind it. It's nothing to do with us. It was the Americans, it's the Jews, it's the Zionists. And it's like nobody's taking the responsibility and saying, how? How could this have happened in our community? Why weren't we keeping an eye on it? Why didn't we have the security in place? You know, even if that security is just people in the community who are actually keeping an eye out because they can't afford a proper police or they can't afford a proper security force. But at least people keeping an eye. How come there's a suspicious package that's been left there? How come that person is wearing a huge vest? You know, these kind of things. And, you know, these are preventable. And if people in the community took that responsibility upon themselves, then it wouldn't happen. You know, the people that are perpetuating the violence and the fear-mongering would be stopped in their tracks. It comes from taking responsibility, and blaming Christians, blaming Jews, or blaming people of another sect. It's cowardice. It's cowardice, and it's moral bankruptcy.
In the cabinet said, well, it's a vast nation, and if you hear someday 40, 50 died, it's a very small number. And I had a hand on my head, and I just couldn't speak that how can, as you say, a people of responsibility have such thick skins, and being a minister in the government say, well, in a huge nation with so many million people, if one day 40, 50 die or are a few more injured, you shouldn't be worked about it. He as a minister, the police officer as a law enforcing officer, an army colonel or general guarding the frontiers, it is their responsibility that they can secure the life of each and every citizen. To wash their responsibility by saying, when actually someone came in from Karachi, Brother Salahuddin, and he said, now after so much killing, now people are saying, well, today only 7 were killed, but it is a better day than yesterday, because yesterday 40 were killed. So now the mindset has become so down in the depth of this killing that it is more or less taken for granted that every day or every week something like this will occur. When we heard of the problem in Bosnia, we used to blame the West, the Yugoslav people, that they were Nazis like. When it happened in Cambodia, we talk about how cruel these communists and others were. When it happened in Africa, we said how uncultured and civilized those Africans are. It's very nice to brush aside other people, but when it happened within the 4 walls or the boundary of one's own country, then why should we accept it? Shouldn't the elders rise, the young ones rise and take responsibility if the government and the authority have abdicated their duties and responsibilities?
You know, Dr. Warsi, when I look at how these politicians are behaving, it's shocking, because I mean, and they call Pakistan an Islamic country. How? Okay, I know there's a lot of Muslims there, but how? In terms of the actual country itself, how it is one? Where's the Islam? I mean, when I read the stories of the Khulafa Rashidin, I'm reminded of one in particular that when you were talking, that Caliph Umar, he used to walk around the area where he lived, and even if a cow had tripped over, he would not be able to sleep. And these people who claim to follow the Khulafa Rashidin, look how they are behaving. This is Caliph Umar. If a cow had tripped over on the road because the road wasn't in the right condition, we're talking about the road not being safe. You know, and if there was sticks or something, he would move it according to the Prophet's some sunnah of moving sticks and things, obstacles that are in the road. And then you go from that to now you've got bombs being placed in these roads. You know, you think of the comparison. I mean, what the heck is wrong with these people? You know, where's the Islam that they are supposedly preaching about? And they're saying, oh, this sect is bad, this sect isn't real Muslims, and this sect is real Muslims. Who are they to judge? And how can they make that judgment when they are acting in such an evil way that they are actually murdering people? And I mean, if you plant a bomb does not discriminate. You know, so you plant a bomb. Let's say someone who was of a particular sect plants a bomb, how does he know his sister won't be walking by when that bomb goes off? You know, it's the barbarism of it and the utter inhumanity. You know, I can't even find the words to describe.
Do you, let me see if we have any clip to show, or later on if we can, to show, you know, what we need to do is, the generation who have taken to violence is a lost generation. Let us address the young ones, the ones who are in their teens and growing up. For God's sake, do not follow their footsteps, because it leads to a dark cave with there is no light at the other end of the tunnel. Right? Wake up and take up the responsibility that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed in your hand. You cannot sit with your hands tied behind your back that my elders say nothing. Brothers and sisters, here we are of two different sects of Islam. So what? We hold hands and have done so and stood together on different platforms. That's what Paul does. If he and I and others here can do so in a land which is a non-Muslim land, why can't you do it in your own country? Who is there to forbid you to do that? Who is there to stop you from doing that? But before I go any further, I think I have a caller on the line. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Dr. Saab, it's a very interesting talk and it is very important. You're discussing of matters. The problem is this, I was thinking about, the genius people.
Sorry, who is it speaking?
I'm speaking from Nottingham. My name is Imran Fazal.
Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Yes.
Right. The thing is this, the most of nations, whatever it is, they live in a poverty.
Yes.
Some of the nation, they survive to the poverty to the positive way. The problem is this, Pakistan, since it's been, got liberation, from that day, no one is coming to seriously to take, to the government for the ruling. Now, up to from now 60 years, everyone coming, it's like they're just coming to enjoy themselves. They don't bother about people who are dying. They are, whatever they're doing, they have no problem. And since from that day there is no law and order in a country, the problem is this: everyone come and they're using Islam in the name of Islam. They put the flag on Islam, and under the flag they're doing all kind of, their desires to be negative approach, to be get themselves to be like like 1400 years, our Khilafat is coming like that. The one who got ruler is living happily, is on government, people they are enjoying, and the people are begging, the people are dying there. They don't have a bother about that. Now the problem is now, they will follow the real Islam and the footstep of the Ahlul Bayt, like Maulana Ishaq is from Faisalabad. He gives a very good comments. He said when he gives the example of Hazrat Salih alayhi salam, his camel. When they kill the camel, and Allah Ta'ala gives them azab. He says same thing happened when they kill Maula Ali. When they martyr Maula Ali alayhi salam. From that day up till now, the Muslims are not following the right path. They follow Islam, but no real Islam.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
So thank you. That's a very, very good point that you have raised. people use the fatwa that goes round that whether it's the people of the Qadiani sect or of the Christian religion or of other non-believers, right? And they start giving fatwa, oh, he is wajibul qatl, i.e. it is mandatory for a Muslim to kill and take his life. From which, and the great tragedy is they will quote ayat and hadith to make their point that in this world Allah has given us the right and made it mandatory, wajib, to take someone's life, when he himself said that he will have mizan on the day of judgment, and when he will bring forth the person who has been brutal, tyrant, or taking anyone's life, even a bird's life, right? He will judge them on that day. So has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God Almighty, abdicated his duty, which he says he will do on the day of judgment, but given it to those so-called muftis, so-called imam of the mosques, who preach this month it is mandatory to take the life of a person of the opposite sect. Has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala abdicated his duty, which he says he holds in his hand on the day of judgment?
Well, the thing is, anybody, these mullahs and whatnot that behave in such a manner, they clearly do not understand the Quran. And they actually reject what Allah says in the Holy Quran, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran that among the Jews and the Christians and the Sabians, among anyone who believes and performs righteous deeds, on them shall be no fear, neither shall they grieve. Now this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying this about not just Muslims of different sects, but Jews, Christians, Sabians, in fact, anyone who believes in God and believes in the last day. This is what the Quran says. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying this in the Holy Quran, who are we as human beings now to turn around and say, actually, this and this person's not a Muslim, this person's not a Muslim, we should go and kill them, this kind of... it contradicts the Quran. The Quran is the highest authority in Islam. So if it contradicts the Quran, it's not Islam. It's simple as. And the people that are making out what they're saying is Islam when they're behaving in that way are complete frauds. They are frauds. And it's about time we expose them as such. No one should listen to these people. They really should not have a following. I mean, they should be locked up, to be honest, as mentally ill people that they are. Because, I mean, who the hell do they think they are? I mean, if you think about it, I mean, we had, back in medieval times in Europe, we had popes that used to say, these people over there, the Cathars in France, that because they had a slightly different interpretation of Christianity, they're not Christians. Let's launch a crusade on them and perform genocide, completely wipe them out. Then they did the same in Spain with the Visigoths, and then with the Muslims later on. And then they did it in the Middle East. Now, I mean, these people are following in the footsteps of those corrupt popes that even Catholics look back on now and they say, you know what, this is a shameful time in our religion, And yet we've got people in the 21st century that are actually thinking like this. I mean...
What's that? Our brother Salahuddin here says, such people are mentally unstable. They should be actually getting psychiatric help rather than being allowed to preach Islam from the pulpits, from the member of the mosques or any other places. Brother Salahuddin says, Islam does not say what they say, and if you say what the Quran doesn't say and say that the Quran says that, then that is heresy, and it is the greatest form of gunah kabira that one can commit by forcefully interpreting Quran according to your own desire and thoughts, when the Quran doesn't say that. In fact, when it says that's the opposite. These are the 4 points that our brother Salahuddin has made, and we as Muslims, whatever sect you are, whether you hold your hand in prayer like that or in like that. No, holding hand to your chest is not the time of the moment that demands. Holding hands together is what we demand. The Islam demands now of you. Islam demands of all of us. Let us forget the killings. Leave it as a history of the past, and let us begin a new chapter where Muslims are brothers, not enemies. Islam doesn't allow enmity even against a non-Muslim. Let us wipe that, as Paul says, Brother Salahuddin says here, as that chapter, make yesterday yesterday. Don't repeat yesterday again tomorrow. Wouldn't it be a nice thing if we all took the Quran, which has for Alhamdu wan Nas exactly the same surahs, exactly the same ayat, exactly the same dots and Zabr and Zair and Pesh, and take that as our book of guidance. And for God's sake, in the name of Allah, don't repeat yesterday and make the same thing happen tomorrow. Let us begin a new life. It is not too late. Do not fall in the trap of the shaitan, because that's what shaitan told Allah on the day he was thrown out of heaven, that, "Oh Allah, I will go down on earth and mislead everyone who is trying to be on the right path, and I will cause the most chaos and friction among them." Brother Salahuddin, so we are not just fighting them, we are in a way fighting shaitan, are we not?
Well, we're fighting evil aspect of our natures that exists within each of us. I mean, people like to externalize and talk about shaitan, but the real thing, I mean, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, when he spoke about this, he says that the shaitan that's inside of us is more dangerous than the shaitan which is outside. In other words, people tend to externalize, and this is also part of the problem with some of these people who say that sect is wrong, that they're externalizing. They need to work upon themselves and purify their own hearts and purify their own actions. Instead, they're externalizing it and blaming everybody else for what they're doing. They're actually the evil which they are blaming someone else for. And this is the danger of externalizing evil. Every single one of us has the potential for good and evil within ourselves, depending on which choices we make in life, which way we want to go. When we fall out with someone and we have a problem, do we have vengeance against them? Do we want to kill them? Do we want to go down that path? Or do we forgive them? Do we work to spend our time doing something more positive and constructive instead? Obviously, if we take the former route, it's destructive. It destroys other people and it destroys ourselves. If we take the latter route, then we're spending our time on something constructive, so we will build something. Whatever constructive activity we spend our time on. And this is the whole point of Islam. This is the whole point of religion and spirituality. It's about getting us to assess ourselves and move forward in a positive way. Not externalizing these things and just scapegoating and blaming everybody else. That doesn't solve anything.
It doesn't solve anything. In fact, it makes it more unpalatable, and intolerance develops in people's hearts and minds towards each other. I would appeal to those who have lost family members, brothers and sisters and fathers and mothers in these blasts, to work with sabr, to work with tolerance. If you just look at the screen just now, you see it is showing the city having the bomb having gone off, leaving a carnage of dead bodies in the rubbles, in the darkness of night. In this road, in rubble, people, mothers are running, finding their children, babies. Look at the photo, look at the picture, look at the scene. just imagine if you were in that place of occurrence of violence, if it was your parents, if it was your little child, if you were your people going into the makeshift camps looking for bodies, finding the body has been ripped apart by bombs and bullets, how would you feel? How would you feel to be on a street like this with thousands there? Nobody knows where to look for, where to find their loved ones. They must have been screaming their head. They must have been feeling such a depth of sorrow, right? And with the fire and the bullets and the bombs going in all different directions, what would be a scene? Is this the scene? I ask you, is that the scene our great Prophet Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam would be looking and saying, well done my followers, well done. That's what I asked you to do. That's what Allah destined you to do, and you are performing jihad. Is that jihad that He's wanting you? It is the jihad of the nafs. Allah is asking you. Look at the people carrying their dead ones or injured ones on makeshift stretchers. Is that Pakistan? Is that how a foreigner who sees these things will think this is a land worth visiting? This is a land worth going to with alone or with family? No. Those pictures must be a nightmare for the people who lost their dead ones. Time is there. Time is of essence. Time is running out. Time is running out before things go to such an extent there is no time of return, no place of return, no solution. I appeal to all those who have lost their dear ones, have sabr. Islam teaches forgiveness and forgetting the ills done to one. When our great Prophet, Brother Salahuddin, entered Makkah after being victorious, the people of Makkah were shaking, their limbs were shaking. They were horrified that this very Prophet of Islam, who is coming in now as a victor, what will he do? What will he do? Will he follow the old Arabic tradition of the land pre-Islamic, where massacres used to take place, women used to be taken into slavery and all the ills done, people's houses used to be ransacked? But our Prophet marched into Makkah with the message of peace, true message of Islam, of brotherhood. He took the one hand of the Ansar, the people of Makkah, and in the other hand of the Muhajir, the people who had migrated to Medina, and from the forces he made them two brothers. If those fighting, feuding people of Makkah and Medina could be made into brothers by our great Prophet Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is it not our duty to stretch our hands and hold the hand of yet another person who also says, at least bare minimum, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, in the name of great Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Stretch your hands, clasp the hands together. It will save you, your soul, it will save your country, and it will save your own soul. Brother Salahuddin, for saving one's own soul, how can we see tyranny like this go on and yet remain silent? Is silence at a time like this, is it gunah-e-kabira? Is silence at such a time of evil? Is it mandatory for us now come out and speak.
Well, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did say that the greatest jihad is to speak a word of truth in front of an oppressive ruler. And that's the greatest jihad. I mean, this isn't quite an oppressive ruler, but it's oppression in another way. Through violence, through fear, so, you know, we can look at this hadith of the Prophet ﷺ and see the real jihad here is to struggle for peace, is to struggle for security, is to struggle for economic stability, so everybody can prosper within the country of Pakistan and other parts of the world which are going through similar kind of traumas. And you know, it starts small sometimes. You look at Prophet ﷺ's mission in Mecca when he first started. It was just the Prophet ﷺ, and then a few people gathered around him. Eventually a few more people, a few more people. Then he left for Medina, a few more people. And eventually he come back to Mecca with a vast army.
Yeah.
But instead of enacting, as you say, vengeance, he forgave everyone. And actually made it a holy sanctuary that no one can be harmed within the borders of Mecca. And no animal, and no plant can be, even no tree can be uprooted. You know, it's such a wonderful, wonderful end to this whole conflict. This is the example and model that we have as Muslims. If we really believe in Islam, if we really believe in the revelation given to Prophet Muhammad, and if not, why are we calling ourselves Muslims? Because that's just fraud. That's fraud and hypocrisy. If you really believe in Islam, then you strive for peace. You strive for building a secure society in which everyone can live. It doesn't matter what religion they are. When Prophet Muhammad made the constitution of Medina, he included everybody in it. Everybody who signed up to that, whether they were Jews, whether they were pagans, still, you know, some people were still pagans, whether they had become Muslims, they were equal citizens in Medina. And now, this is centuries before people in Europe were talking about secularism. So, you know, the heritage of what is now called secularism actually lies, the good part of it, the good aspect of it, of everybody living together, that lies firmly in the heritage given to us by Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And it's about time that we as Muslims took that back and stopped saying it belonged to someone else. That's ours. That's what Islamic society is supposed to be like. It's not supposed to be this bickering between different sects and different religions. An Islamic society is a home for everyone to live peacefully, everyone in our human family.
We have a call, Brother Salahuddin. Let me take that call. Assalamu alaikum.
वालेकुम सलाम, सैयद अदनान बोल रहा हूँ।
अच्छा, आप कहाँ से बोल रहे हैं जनाब?
मैं पाकिस्तान से बोल रहा हूँ।
अच्छा, हाँ,
लाहौर से।
अच्छा, बोले। हम लोग आपकी आवाज़ आ रही है।
एहतजाज रिकॉर्ड कराना चाहता हूँ। क्यों हमारा चैनल जो एहतजाज करता है तो सारे चैनल क्यों नहीं करते? हाँ जी, कराची में जो वाक़या हुआ है, हमारे इस पुरअमन एहतजाज को मौला ज़ैनुल आबिदीन अलैहिस्सलाम की सुन्नत समझ के हम करते हैं। पुरअमन एहतजाज,
हाँ हाँ,
हमारी कौम को ये लोग ऐसे ना समझें कि ये पुरअमन कौम कुछ भी नहीं कर सकती। हम मौला ज़ैनुल आबिदीन के नक्शे कदम पे चलते हुए पुरअमन कौम है। मैं इतनी बात करके आपको अल्लाह हाफ़िज़ कहना चाहता हूँ।
The caller from Pakistan, Lahore, says, just because we do not take arms and retaliate, people shouldn't think that we are weak. It requires more strength to keep the sword in the saber and not take it out in vengeance and revenge. As you were saying earlier on, vengeance is easy. Being compassionate and caring and forgiving is far more difficult. And he says, the caller says from Lahore, don't take us weak. It requires great strength to follow the footsteps of Imam Hussein's alayhi son, Zainul Abidin alayhi salam, who suffered so much in the battle of Karbala. Yet when he was in Medina, and it is said, I have read it in the book myself, that Shimr, who severed the head of Aba Abdullah, when he found his children weren't safe from the enemies, he brought them to the Imam and said, I have to go because there is an army looking for me to kill me, right? Would you take care of my children? And Imam Zainul Abidin, the son of Imam Hussain al-Islam, took the enemy who severed his father's head from his body and took him and gave guarantee that your children will be as safe as my children. So, as the caller says, it's easy for vengeance. But like Zainul Abidin Islam, he says, we follow his footsteps. It's far, far more difficult to forgive even the enemy and give him the opportunity to say his sorry to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his deeds, not to the world here, but to directly to Allah. For He is so kind, Rahman, Rahim, and forgiving. If we could light the candle of hope, light that candle of hope into the hearts and minds and souls of the young generation of Pakistan, that when you come out of your schools and colleges, create a new Pakistan, not based on swords and bullets and guns, but based on, as the caller from Lahore said, on love, compassion, then will it not be, Brother Salahuddin, a very beautiful, a very loving, a very caring Pakistan?
Maybe then it will become worthy of its name, the Pure Land.
The Pure Land.
Maybe then. This is the hope, isn't it? I mean, we all hope all countries on earth are like this. I mean, at the end of the day, this violence and stuff is symptomatic of a greater problem in the hearts of humanity, and over disputes that are things that we should be discussing and coming to some kind of better understanding of, that people turn to violence as a way of trying to solve these disputes. And this goes beyond Pakistan, beyond Quetta, and beyond Lahore. And it's something which we see in all different parts of the world. And it makes me wonder, you know, how would that look if we had visitors tomorrow from somewhere else in the cosmos? How would that look to them? What would they think of us as a species, that we don't even have respect for the lives of people of our own race, of our own species, as a human family? You know, and they would be scared. How would we treat them? If we can't even treat other human beings properly, how would we treat them? And, you know, with the current scientific discoveries that are being made, that possibility is one that is not as far off as some people think, because they're finding new Earth-like planets all the time. So we have to look towards the future and stop this kind of barbarity that we should have left behind hundreds of years ago in the past. We should not be doing this now. I mean, otherwise, what kind of human beings are we? What kind of, you know, can we even be worthy of the word civilized or of sentient being? You know, even if you get a group of chimpanzees, do they behave that way to one another? Do they start killing each other? And people have a tendency to look down upon chimpanzees and see that they're just animals. You know, aren't we supposed to be more evolved or developed than that? These are questions we should ask and reflect upon more deeply, and then realize the value of the spiritual science of self-purification as taught to us by Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and the great saints throughout history.
Well, brothers and sisters, we have more or less come to the end of our time to discuss this issue. I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that next time we talk about this country called Pakistan, we will hopefully would be talking about a great nation, a nation of peace and tranquility, nation of great trade and commerce, nation where education is an ilm is that everybody goes after. A nation which is a role model of its kind in the Islamic world. And let us hope we do not talk about killings and massacres and ethnic cleansing of one sect or the other. Don't do it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is adil. Adalat, justice, is what he says he is. And if Allah is not just, then he is not worth worshipping. If he is unkind, then he is not worshipping. But we know Allah is compassionate, Allah is kind, Allah is merciful, Allah is all just. When the 72 martyrs of Karbala, on their way to save Allah's religion, the Quran, justice was done. Yazid and the perpetrators of Karbala's massacre, nobody takes their name, but the name of Imam Hussain lives on in everyone's tongue, not only just Muslims, but all mankind who believe in impartiality. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.